Tonight, concern from medical experts as measles cases are confirmed on the prairies. We meet a 15-year-old Regina hockey hotshot who some are comparing to Sidney Crosby. And the Huskies women's basketball team take the national title in Vancouver.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Monday, March 17th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. Worries around measles are growing on the prairies. A case has now been confirmed in Saskatchewan. And as Sam Sampson reports, there are concerns in Alberta as cases there increase and vaccination levels lag behind.
Alberta Health Services announced late Friday night there is a confirmed case of measles in the Calgary area, with exposures in Airdrie, a bedroom community of the Prairie Province's largest city.
With the ease of travel and the fact that Calgary is a large transport hub, it really was a matter of time before we saw our first case here in the city.
For herd immunity to measles, Dr. Craig Jenny says vaccination rates need to be around 95%. Health Canada's latest numbers suggest the national rate is about 87%. In parts of Calgary, Jenny says it's closer to 75 or 80, and in some parts of rural Alberta, it's closer to 40%. National vaccination rates have declined, especially after COVID, due to vaccine hesitancy, a backlog of early childhood vaccine programs that were derailed to address COVID, and vaccine fatigue.
Sadly, the viruses don't care if we're tired or angry or frustrated. They simply take advantage when we let our guard down.
Alberta's initial outbreak happened in Little Red River Cree Nation in northern Alberta. 6 people there are now recovering, but there is one potential case from another household. Schools are closed for 1 week so parents can bring their families to vaccination clinics.
We have a 400 wait list in our health center calling in, wondering if they're vaccinated. So that gives me a lot of hope to say, okay, we can actually have some leeway to take care of this.
The virus is popping up across the prairies. Saskatchewan now has 1 confirmed case. Manitoba has had 6 since February. 5 of those cases are related to an outbreak in Ontario. That province by far has the most measles cases in Canada. It's also the province wrapping up its March break right now.
Measles is really one plane ride away, and all it takes is for us to go to some places elsewhere in the world, and we can bring measles back pretty easily. And the reality is that we're seeing a lot more measles in general, even within Canada.
Both experts suggest Canadians should check to see if they've had measles or are fully immunized. If so, you have maximum immunity. If not, they suggest getting in touch with your healthcare provider. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Canada's new Prime Minister is on his first international trip just days after taking office. Mark Carney is looking to bolster relations with Europe amid the trade war with the U.S. He began the day in Paris before heading to Britain, including a visit with King Charles.
Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty.
The focus for the talks was security, trade, and economic ties with Europe. Carney's packed day included a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. While in Paris, he met with French President Emmanuel Macron. Carney spoke about the need to strengthen ties with what he calls Canada's reliable allies. Canadians are bracing for price hikes in the grocery store as the trade war heats up. Loblaw recently confirmed it will raise prices on items as soon as they're hit with tariffs. The company calls the measures inflationary and a tax on consumers. It says it's working with government to exempt key products, but higher prices are unavoidable with higher costs on imports. The Supreme Court of Canada has come down with a new ruling impacting Saskatchewan's justice system. The nation's highest court says prisoners who break the rules in jail need to have their offenses more fairly evaluated, as some prisoners were being unfairly punished for rules they didn't break. Helena Mahalik reports.
Inmates charged with disciplinary offenses in Saskatchewan's provincial correctional institutions must appear before a disciplinary panel. The Supreme Court has just ruled that Saskatchewan prisoners had their rights violated during disciplinary hearings. The standard of proof in these proceedings is a balance of probabilities, meaning it must be more likely than not that the inmate committed the offense. This standard of proof is used in all disciplinary proceedings, including major offenses. Prisoners will then be sanctioned for any number of things, from a fine to a loss of privileges, like using the phone or visiting the canteen. But there are also harsher sanctions that impact their liberty, like segregation for up to 10 days or loss of up to 15 days of earned remission. The John Howard Society of Saskatchewan challenged these regulations, taking the case to the top court against the government of Saskatchewan. On Friday, the Supreme Court agreed to a 6-3 judgment. The court says the standard of proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt applies in these kind of hearings, rather than simply basing decisions on a balance of probabilities. Pierre Hawkins, a public legal counsel for the prisoner rights group, says the ruling is a revolutionary change in the way prison rights are administered.
Ultimately, the court ruled that the presumption of innocence applies here, and Section 7 and 11 of the Charter mean that guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt before an inmate can be sentenced to segregation or a loss of earned remission, which really just pushes back their release date.
Hawkins says the ruling should lead to several long-term reforms in Saskatchewan's jail system. The provincial government says it's reviewing the implications of the Supreme Court decision with respect to major disciplinary offenses. Hawkins says a final decision was needed to maintain good faith in the system.
It's a system which we argued at the Supreme Court doesn't really promote order, because if you feel like a system which is punishing you is unfair, then that system, you're probably not going to have a lot of respect for that system.
But the government of Saskatchewan claims the decision did not rule on the constitutionality of the civil standard of the balance of probabilities when it comes to minor disciplinary offenses. That involves using the balance of probabilities rather than proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
An Ontario judge has reserved a decision to Tuesday on whether to allow Hudson's Bay to begin liquidating its entire business. An approval would close all 80 stores and 16 Sask locations by June 15th. It comes just days after Canada's oldest company sought creditor protection. The retailer blames financial difficulties from reduced consumer spending and Canada-U.S. trade tensions. More than 9,000 jobs are at risk. The Bay says it's still looking to restructure if it can secure financing, but so far has been unable to find lenders that will step up. Hudson's Bay has 2 locations in Saskatchewan, in Regina and Saskatoon. The Regina store in the Cornwall Centre was already set to close at the end of April. The company opted not to renew its lease in the mall last year. Well, some hunters and animal rights groups are crying foul at the government's move to expand the elk hunting season. They say the expansion includes a period of time when most female elk are heavily pregnant. Chris Edwards reports.
Saskatchewan elk hunters are expressing their thoughts on the province expanding the elk hunt into March. Rebecca Russell has been an avid elk hunter since childhood, but she says she's discouraged by the decision.
I kind of understand of why they're doing it. It's just I don't agree when they're doing it, because the elk are like a couple weeks with giving birth.
The provincial government says selling elk licenses this month will address damage to crops and allow it to track outbreaks of tuberculosis in elk herds. The hunt is only being expanded into 3 hunting zones, 2 in southeast Saskatchewan and 1 just north of Saskatoon. But even that's too much for Animal Justice, an animal rights group. It says that hunting pregnant elk violates Saskatchewan's Animal Protection Act, which has strict guidelines for reasonable hunting practices.
It really runs in the face of the rule of law to then expand the goalposts all of a sudden and say, just because some folks want to shoot elk in the spring, suddenly we're going to consider that to also be reasonable and generally accepted. It's just not. That's not how the law works.
It's also a problem for the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, which represents 74 First Nations across the province. It says that the hunt is irresponsible and culturally insensitive.
It's hard to put into words, but you just don't do that. You don't go and kill babies that are in the tummies of sacred animals, such as the elk.
In a statement, the provincial government acknowledges the opposition, but repeated the risk that bovine tuberculosis poses to herd animals, and that hunters are required to send samples for testing.
Time is of the essence.
Ryan Brook from the University of Saskatchewan says he understands the reasoning behind the decision. Brooks says a tuberculosis outbreak, which can spread between wild elk and cattle herds, could devastate farmers.
At the end of the day, we also have to balance off the fact that these cattle farmers have a risk of losing their livelihood.
What that balance will be remains to be seen. For now, the elk hunt will continue until the end of the month. Chris Edwards, CBC News, Regina.
The 19th Provincial Cheerleading Championships were held in Regina this past weekend at the Connexus Arts Centre. It brings together over 1,800 cheer athletes from across Saskatchewan and draws an estimated 4,000 spectators. The event includes school and all-star teams, and some of the athletes from this event will go on to the World Cheerleading Championships in Florida next month. Stay with us. Riley Lachuk has a look at your forecast when we come back after the break. Welcome back. Maddox Schultz could soon be the next big name in the hockey world. Schultz is the top-ranked player in Canada, born in 2010. And the Regina product is expected to be the first overall pick in the Western Hockey League draft in May. Our Dan Plaster recently caught up with Maddox and his family.
Maddox Schultz has done this thousands of times in his short life. He just turned 15 and is considered by scouts to be the top player born in 2010 in Canada. So extraordinary, Maddox was given exceptional status at the age of 14 to play up in the Saskatchewan U18 AAA Hockey League, where he would become the league's top scorer and earn national attention for goals like this one.
You know, it's something I want to do every day and something I want to keep doing for the rest of my life. So
Maddox has been dubbed the next Connor Bedard or Sidney Crosby. It's his skating skills that really set him apart. He comes by it naturally. His parents Vicky and David are elite level figure skating coaches, and his sister Sydney is a national level figure skater.
We were kind of raised in the rink because when we were really little, our parents had to teach starting at like the same schedule, starting at like 12 till 3:30. So the skating parents would kind of just like babysit us, and we'd run around the rink when we were like really, really little.
Their earliest memories would be at the rink, even if they didn't have skates on.
As babies, like we were coaching at the rink, so we would bring their playpen to the rink, and we would have, you know, parents or older students look after the kids in the playpen in the lobby of the rink. So they've been rink rats pretty much their whole lives.
At almost every step in minor hockey, Maddox has played up a level against players bigger and stronger, yet still found success. Last year, at just 13 years old, he was called up to the U18 AAA team for 5 games and scored his first time out.
I remember being so nervous, like just before the game, like because there's players that are bigger, faster, and stronger, and I just, you know, I wanted to bring my best, and I knew there were going to be some guys that wanted to hit me, and I just had to keep my head up.
While some would question putting a 13-year-old in that situation, Pat Canadians head coach Ryan Hodgins says it was a no-brainer.
It's definitely unique to have a player at that level at that age, but you could see it coming with Maddox from when he was playing minor hockey, that he was a special player.
Special indeed. Maddox has been at the top of every scout's list for many years. Todd Ripplinger has been a scout in the Western Hockey League for over 30 years. He puts Maddox in some very high company.
You know, he's built like Crosby. He can score like Crosby. He gets in tight around the net. His shot is so hard and strong already for a 14-year-old. But his biggest attribute is his skating.
Maddox could ask to play full-time in the WHL next season as a 15-year-old, following in the footsteps of former Regina Pat Connor Bedard and the Everett Silvertips Landon DuPont. Only 9 players in Canada have ever been given that kind of exceptional status. But because of a new Hockey Canada rule, Maddox has chosen not to do that. So he'll stick with the U18 Regina Pat Canadians AAA team and still be allowed to play 34 games in the WHL.
It was a pretty easy decision as a family. The title of exceptional status, the players that have worn that, I mean, it's unbelievable what they've been able to do with it. But we didn't think that was right for him and for our family.
it's more of a hybrid option with this one, and so that was really attractive to us. Again, just to, push but also protect.
This also guarantees he'll stay close to home. For as competitive as the Schultz family can be, they're always supportive.
I love to cheer him on, like anything that he does, either like if he makes a bad move, I'm like, oh, you'll do better next time. But for the most part, yeah, I just like to cheer him on, and I'm very proud of him.
I think I just got to be grateful for the time and enjoy the time that I have with them, because they're the people that they're my people. So
that connection, keeping him grounded, even as the pressure is beginning to build, as he's expected to go #1 in the Western Hockey League draft in May.
It's chaotic. I think it's something you got to get used to, because as you progress and as you get older, I think this is something that is just gonna keep coming. So you got to just be prepared for it, and I think I've been doing a really good job of that.
Just staying focused on what he loves. Dan Plaster, CBC News, Regina.
Well, that is quite a bit of fresh snow on the ground out there in Regina that we received in the early morning hours of Monday, and our temperature below seasonal as well. Riley Lachuk is in now for a look at just how long this snow is going to stick around. Hi, Riley.
Well, thanks, Ethan. Great to be back with you again. I thought I'd start tonight with a little bit of a look at spring on the way, because I know it hasn't been spring yet, at least for all of us. Starting with a weather picture from Imperial, Saskatchewan, which is south of Watrous. Sandy taking this picture of a porcupine just chilling in the field just off of Highway number 2. So there you go. I know it hasn't been like this for everybody. We have actually seen some accumulating snow through parts of the province as we've gotten through the day, particularly in southeastern sections. I know Regina getting a few flurries earlier, but most of that snow into the southeastern corner of the province, and actually creating some partly snow-covered to snow-covered highways the further east you've gone, particularly Moosomin and south and east toward the Manitoba border. So if you have any travel into the morning hours on Tuesday, particularly into eastern sections of the province, take care, because some of the residual of this is continuing to fall as we get into the overnight hours. So daytime temperatures today, -6 in Regina, -5 in Saskatoon, above freezing the further west you go. Maple Creek at +4, La Ronge at -4, so a bit of a spread. Fairly seasonal actually for most of us as we've gotten through the day. So couple things to look at on our upper level winds tonight. First off, here's that area of low pressure that did bring a little bit of snow to southern sections of the province. The jet stream further south, which means a little bit of colder air thanks to this very large cold front attached to this area of low pressure that is off over Hudson Bay right now. So that's contributed to a bit of a cooler day. As we get into the day on Tuesday, we'll see our temperatures moderating, and a little bit more so as we get toward midweek or so. As we get through the overnight hours, we do start to see a little bit of clearing. Although mainly cloudy once we start the day on Tuesday, I do think out of some of this, we do have a slight chance of a few scattered flurries throughout the day on Tuesday, so do keep that in mind. Otherwise, we're calling it a mix of sun and cloud really for most of us. High pressure wants to set in for Wednesday, which will cool us down slightly into the overnight hours, but also brighten our skies up as we get into the day on Wednesday. So a little bit of a trade-off there. Temperatures do start to warm up as we get into the next few days, though. As we wake up in the morning on Tuesday, again, a very seasonal overnight into the day on Tuesday. -8 in Saskatoon first thing in the morning. Kindersley looking at -9, -11 in Regina, and some colder air still into parts of northern Saskatchewan. So Regina looking at -3, chance of scattered flurries. Starting spring above 0 with +1 for your Thursday, -2 for Friday, and really pretty stable as we get into the next few days at least. For Saskatoon, -3, chance of some scattered flurries for Tuesday. And Ethan, again, pretty stable until we get into the weekend and we see a chance of flurries.
Not a bad start to spring. Thanks so much, Riley. Over 500 dancers from Ukrainian dance schools across the prairies took the stage at the Regina Performing Arts Centre over the weekend. It's all part of the Tavria School of Ukrainian Dance Festival. Around 450 different performances took place, featuring dancers ranging in age from 5 to 19 years old. This is the 33rd year for the event. Stay with us. We'll have more news for you after the break. The U of S Huskies women's basketball team are national champions. They defeated the Carleton Ravens, who have won the university basketball title the last 2 seasons, and the team that narrowly defeated the Huskies last year. We caught up with the team as they arrived home in Saskatoon.
Unbelievable. It's an undescribable feeling, and I'm super excited we got to bring home the bronze baby to Saskatoon.
So the women from the prairies, they're going home with a national title.
Just team dynamic. I mean, throughout the whole season, that's what we've been working on, and just consistency and being able to play, 100% of the game at that level and that speed. And we were fortunate enough that this weekend it clicked, and yeah.
It was a really special group. Especially being able to come back from last year's disappointment. We knew we had a great team, but again, you just never know what's going to happen. So many things factor in to be able to win a national championship. We actually had a couple injuries after Thursday's game. We weren't too sure if 2 starters were going to be able to play the rest of the tournament, and thankfully they were. I mean, just such a tough, resilient group, very tight-knit and, super composed in the biggest moments.
I think all of us deserve a couple days off and a nice break. But yeah, you know what? We're going to celebrate the accomplishment we had this year. And then, start thinking about next year and how we can, continue our success.
All right, still a little bit of snow to fall yet as we get through eastern sections of the province overnight into Tuesday morning. So again, tapering off through Yorkton. I mean, a slight chance of flurries in Yorkton at -11, more so through Moosomin. Mostly cloudy for Estevan, and the further west you go, that's where we see a mainly clear sky overnight tonight, looking at -8 in Saskatoon, Prince Albert at -11 overnight. Pelican Narrows -14. There's that chance of maybe a few scattered flurries overnight through La Ronge into Buffalo Narrows. Temperatures around -20. So still a little bit of cool air yet through parts of northern Saskatchewan. And as we get through the day on Tuesday, temperatures do start to moderate a bit, get closer to seasonal, but the north staying below seasonal for this time of the year. Generally looking at a mix of sun and clouds. In the south, cloud hangs around, and out of this, I think the chance of some scattered flurries, particularly in Regina and points south and west through the day. This particular model giving us some snow through the later afternoon around Moose Jaw. So just keep in mind that we could run into a little more snow.
All right, thanks very much, Riley. And that is it for us. For more news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.